So you're probably on the internet right now researching how to get off of alcohol or even benzos. Well, there is a way you can, and you can do it naturally, and there are other tips you can use. So let's jump right onto this. You don't have to fear the detox. And this applies to anyone out there who can't make it in to see their healthcare provider or the psychiatric setting. So let's jump right on into this topic of alcohol and benzos and if you have to detox at home.
Also, yep.
After more now than 50 years of experience with benzodiazepines, Leo Sternbach serendipitously discovered Librium, followed by Valium in 1963. Now let's jump right on in to this medication and what you need to know in regards to the detox if you can't go to a healthcare provider, because you always should. So I'm going to go ahead and include alcohol with the benzos because they're so similar. So as stated, first off, benzos is the primary thing we'll be covering, but alcohol as well, due to a couple things. But Librium was the very first benzo that was ever created. It was actually found by mistake in 1955, and then after that, it was actually put on the market and approved by the FDA a little after 1965. That's just a little history on it. I'm not going to go into alcohol's history, but I just wanted to start with that. Now first, the whole point of this is for people out there, again, who can't go into the psychiatric setting or go to a healthcare provider. And you might think, why on this? Well, a lot of times there's a stigma, unfortunately, affiliated with it, and let's just be honest, it's really expensive. So, number one, and we're going to be covering four aspects to consider when detoxing, in particular off of benzos, but also alcohol as well. Now, number one is some questions to consider. So the first one would be, number one would be, if you have, so the thing about alcohol is if you haven't blown through all your money, and with benzos, if you're considering stopping, would be to taper. That'd be the number one aspect. With alcohol or benzos. Now, remember, with questions, why you may ask, biggest thing, depending on how long you've been using, which we'll hit real quick, seizures is a big problem. Benzos and alcohol both can cause seizures if, once again, with some of these questions, how long have you been using this substance or been drinking? Or even how much? Once again, is it daily use? How many drinks or prescription meds were you taking a day? And once again, with benzos, let's say you've been taking, for example, 2 milligrams of Xanax. It's supposed to be as needed, but you have it every day if you need it. Every day for a couple years, and you're realizing that it's not helping near as much, or the dose isn't effective, and the doctor won't raise the dose, obviously, and you're having rebound anxiety. A lot of times with that, if you're not tapering off of it, you can have very bad seizures. You can have the sweats. It's very hard to work. It's very uncomfortable. So, questions. These are some of the questions you consider. But number one with this is always, if you have the opportunity, always talk to your doctor. But if you can't, and you've been taking it on the streets even, and let's say you're getting it from a source or even however you're getting it, if you can, taper. Same with alcohol. If you've been drinking, for example, liquor compared to beer, there can be differences. If you've been drinking, let's say, 8 shots of liquor every day, 8 to 10, or even on weekends, I would highly consider tapering it first down to about, maybe half of it or whatnot. And then from there, potentially getting off of it. But cold turkey, honestly, if you're at home with these, it's very tough. It can be done, but I encourage you first to taper off of it. I'm not going to go really into exact doses or whatnot, but if you've been using the substances for a good amount of time, let's even say up to 6 months or so, you might want to consider this due to the seizure risk. Also with this, which I'm in my next video, we will do one on. Once again, we'll cover serotonin syndrome, and we will also cover DTs, delirium tremens. But another thing is, if you're not tapering, for example, alcohol, and you're getting off of it and you're not getting the treatment you need, DTs are common, which you might ask, what's that? confusion, hallucinations, really bad anxiety, confusion. You don't know where you are, and that is a medical emergency. So that's number one. Number two, and you might go, well, how does this apply in the outside of the setting? Once again, if you can't go in to a healthcare provider and you can taper, that is an option. But number two, electrolytes. So, and also if you're doing this back on number one, if you can't taper and you can't get into a doctor, this is where these come into play as well. And once again, if you have a history of seizures and whatnot, you should always go see a healthcare provider, as stated in the last video. Number two, electrolytes. So with the electrolytes outside of the setting or seeing a healthcare provider, you have a higher chance, first off, of having imbalances due to the dehydration. Something that can help a lot in regards to this is, when it comes to hydration, drinking things such as Powerade, taking a magnesium supplement. But once again, when you're detoxing at first, the nausea and vomiting can be very, very intense, extremely intense. And also with the electrolytes as well, magnesium you typically have some depletion in, vitamin B you have depletion in, so trying to get those vitamins in and staying hydrated is key, because if you can stay hydrated, that is a way you can, for example, avoid some of these serious side effects such as seizures or even DTs. Now, real quick, with the vitamins, which I have with the electrolytes and vitamins, real quick, you have, once again, let's say you don't have a history of seizures or you've never had a seizure before, and this is all what I've seen in the psych setting as an RN. You are reducing your chance of potentially having seizures, and in more particular, severe muscle spasms, if you keep your electrolytes and vitamins increased and you're trying to get those in. And once again, if you've had a seizure in your past or you have a history of seizures, you have an increased chance of developing seizures if you're detoxing off of alcohol and benzos. And let me touch on this. The reason why I put these two together is they're both downers. And ironically, if you have to go into the psychiatric setting and you can't do it alone, for example, with alcohol, they will give you benzos to take. But that's why I put these together, and it's just good to get off of both, like just getting away from both of these if you can, because a lot of times it can cause further rebound anxiety with it. So also with it, as stated, vitamin B is huge, is very big, because if that's depleted or your other vitamins are depleted, this is why it'd be good to get some lab work done if you can. That's another way you can avoid DTs as well. But we'll do a separate video on that, no worries. Now, also some things to consider: supplements, iodine, magnesium, vitamin C, D3 even, and turmeric. These specifically go with number 3, which is what I put on here. If you can't detox, if you're detoxing at home, calm tea. And you might go, what? Calm tea, or things that stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. I know my handwriting's chicken scratch, but just go with me on this. And things as well, these supplements I just mentioned, which are iodine, magnesium, vitamin C, D3, turmeric, these can help reduce that sympathetic nervous system response, which is fight or flight, so that increased heart rate, anxiety. It can help decrease this and stimulate your vagus nerve, which will ultimately help with your anxiety. Now, things such as honey lavender, caffeine-free, you can buy this, and the key is avoid caffeine with this too. You can buy this over the counter, these supplements. Also, Calmade. So, as I said, it'll help reduce that anxiety, muscle spasms as well. And this isn't every situation. This is just if you're in a situation where, once again, you can't see a doctor, or you can't go to the ER or whatnot. You know, this is for that. And also, once again, it helps relax your muscles and helps prevent serious tremors, muscle tremors, and things such as restless leg, because with a lot of drug withdrawals, outside of like with seizures, muscle spasms and problems sleeping, insomnia, and you know, sometimes even things such as night terrors and stuff, and if it's all resulting in a lack of sleep, that can just exacerbate sometimes some of these problems, because if you're not sleeping well, your whole body can start not failing, but it takes a lot longer to actually recover from this. But real quick as well with it, I would, in what I've seen in the psych setting, some natural supplements that have really helped, and I say this again: iodine, magnesium, vitamin C, and turmeric, and in particular this honey lavender tea, especially for sleep at night, has had great results. But the key is, if you're going to drink any teas or anything, because it can help with those muscle cramps, muscle spasms, the tremors, and help increase the amount of sleep you get, you need to make sure it is, I'm just going to put right here, caffeine free. That's key. And real quick, you might be wondering, what was with that thumbnail as well that you did? So the whole point with that thumbnail was, the biggest thing was the benzo belly. That is something that when you're detoxing off of benzos and alcohol and as well, but in particularly with benzos, the benzo belly is very, very common. And you might go, what is that? Severe GI discomfort. It's not even, it's way worse than a stomach ache. It's like, it's deep intestinal muscle pain. And, you know, with that, I'll be real honest. It can also cause full-fledged muscle spasms. So severe stomach aches, but it's deeper than that, and the muscle spasms, which is a problem, and it can cause diarrhea, even constipation. That's why these things such as electrolytes are big in getting sleep. Now, also with that is one of the number one side effects when getting off of benzos that I have seen is having severe GI discomfort. That's why that's there. So if you're suffering and you're like, oh, I'm not having seizures, but I'm having horrible stomach pains, like deep ones, that is common. That is common. And ways to prevent this, as stated, is making sure as well, you got to ask these questions. Did you taper? How much were you using? And I know it's hard when you're detoxing through this, but this can really help you. How much are you sleeping? Things like this. The vitamins. Magnesium, again, is huge. Vitamin B is huge. And finally, number 4. And I put this on here as a natural remedy, even though it's really not, but it's so key and so crucial, which is tell someone about it if you can. And I know sometimes, once again, with the stigma of this, you could be scared going through this. But tell someone. You might ask why. The support. Telling somebody you're going through something like this in particular, it helps take that burden off your chest as well. If a lot of times you might be with a significant other or even family or parents, and they're like, they might not even know you're using these things, and then you're trying to tell them, oh, I'm sick, I don't know what's causing it, but you do know what's causing it. Letting someone know, they might be at first a little, they might be shocked, but in the end, telling somebody it can only help, because if you do have a seizure or something's going on, they will know how to address it, or in particular, which we'll talk about with the DTs, why you need to tell someone why it's important to. It's because if you start having severe confusion, anxiety, if you don't have somebody help you, some severe things can happen. You can fall, you're a fall risk. You could act out aggressively at someone. You could inadvertently go get in your car and start driving and have no recollection of it. Same with benzos. Benzos, it's not DTs you have, but you can have it can be very similar in that way. It's not called DTs, but you can have hallucinations and stuff which are very similar. So tell someone. And also, big thing, SI, suicidal thoughts, are very common, which can increase as well during this time because of that rebound anxiety. You're frustrated on why you're not feeling better. You might be suffering through your job and whatnot. And also with the suicidal thoughts in particular, if you have a family history of addictions, or even things such as generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, and more in particular, why are you using it? Why are you using these things? A lot of times it's an underlying cause of why are you using them, which can once again cause things such as suicidal ideation and whatnot. But once again, the thumbnail was the benzo belly because that is the number one side effect. And with alcohol, a lot of times it goes hand in hand, muscle spasms, severe muscle cramps. See, these are some of the most common side effects that when detoxing off of stuff, just in drugs in general. So it's good to know. But also the big thing is, again, is taper if you can, alcohol or benzos, because you want to reduce that chance of having a seizure depending on how long you've been using it. But once again, I'm not a doctor, and you should always go see your doctor if you can. But sometimes stuff like this, when you go into the setting or even you see your doctor, you feel judged. They might just give you a script for something else, and you're wanting to get to the root cause of this, that sometimes you have to think outside of the box. Sometimes doctors, RNs, they can't just hand you the answer. You're the one who knows your health history the most, and you're feeding them information. And when you go see a doctor sometimes, you forget a lot of times what you're even going to ask them, and you feel judged. But next video, we'll be covering DTs or serotonin syndrome. We'll do one or the other, as stated in the last video. But like and subscribe. We're going to keep putting out videos. We're going to be putting out stuff, all things mental health. And we're going to keep doing the board series. I like doing this. I know it looks backwards right now and whatnot. I'm trying to figure that out. But like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you've ever been through one of these detoxes before or advice you have. Have a great week. I love you all.